In this video, I'm going to reproduce this antique Tomahawk hatchet using pewter casting for the blade part of this and a little bit of woodworking for an improved handle. This is what we're going to end up with. I bought this at our local flea market last week from a dealer there, and I couldn't get my dollar out fast enough when she gave me the price on it. And I knew right away I was going to try to cast it, but I also knew this was going to have some challenges to it as well. I got it to the shop and immediately I popped the handle off. This is just a dowel. It's been stained. It's some lightweight material. But the head of this thing is, it's a magnetic cast material. I believe it's some type of iron with nickel plating. Now this, I believe, was made to be a child's toy. It's probably part of a little toolkit or something. This is my most complex mold that I've poured. I spared the details of how I did this, but I started off encasing this in putty, and then I poured this on top here, and then I flipped it like this, and then I poured this top part onto it like this. And then I pulled the two parts apart like this, and I had to think very hard about how I was going to orient this for the pour. You can see the core that is in here. That ends up being the hole that the handle goes through. So I needed to do this in such a way that I could pour it and vent it so that I did not have any voids and high spots. I decided that I was going to pour this through the edge and down so that it took care of all the low spots, and I didn't have any problems with high spots on the hammer part of this hatchet. So I made my sprue here, and I made the vent coming out the side and also another one coming out the side of the blade. Now to get this, I had to cut the top part into half, so it's effectively a three-part mold. But in order to maintain the alignment, what I did is I drilled a little hole right here through the mold like this, and then I drilled it for this piece of wire. And what that does is when I put the mold in this box here and encase it, it maintains the alignment of the top part of this. It's a three-part mold, but you'll pour it through this sprue, and there's a vent hole and there's a vent hole. So let's go over and cast one. But just very carefully do the pour here. Let it feed in, and there it is coming out the vent hole. And so that's a complete pour right there. And we'll let that sit for about 15 minutes, and then we'll demold and see how we did. Let's see the result. Pull the pin, the front cover, small piece comes off. Looks good. There's some shrinkage to this, the flat part of the blade. I mean, it's not a huge problem, but I've gotten shrinkage on a lot of these. And then pulling the other two parts out, just very carefully take them apart here. And that's a really good casting. I mean, that's probably one of my best. The biggest issue I have is I'm getting shrinkage right in this area right here. And I suppose I could devise some way to better vent the metal here. I'm not sure if that would help it or not, but I'm pretty happy with it the way that it is. So this is number 6, and I'd say it's definitely at the top of the quality on the casting so far. Here's a look at some of the rough castings. This, of course, is the original piece here. This was the very first one I did. The mold was cold, and I forgot to dust it with baby powder. So this one is real pitted, and it's actually missing some of the casting, so I'm going to take that one and remelt it. Number 2 came out a lot better. There's a little bit of a void there on the flats of the blade, but I think that's okay. The rest of it's not bad. 3 is the same thing. It's also got a little bit of a holiday right there. Number 4, also the holiday. All of these have the holiday. I like the shape of the handle on this hatchet right here, and so I'm going to try to do something with a little bit of a curve to it. And I've got I think this is a piece of oak, looks like oak, and so I'm going to try to emulate this to some degree, and I think this little axe or hatchet deserves something better than this plain dowel here. So we'll go ahead and start cleaning up the sprue here on the casting. Snip that off. So we'll get busy and sand and clean off those parting lines and polish this up, and then we'll go to work on the handle. Well, I polished my first one here to compare it, and I think it looks pretty good. It's got some imperfections and so forth in it. And I bet you thought this was the one I just cast. Nope, it is this one. This is the original here. I'll put this back on its handle here, and you can compare it to the new one. Now the new one's got some shrinkage in the casting here on both sides, and I think that may be an uneven cooling issue. But I think that'll be fine. These are not functional. These are just going to be for display or toys or what have you. So can't help but be happy with that. So let's get over to the sander and make a handle. I think I've had this boiled linseed oil since the 90s, but I think that it's all we really want on this little handle here. I sanded this down to 8,000 grit sandpaper. Just kidding. What do you think? We'll let that dry for a while, and then we'll put another coat on there. There's the two hatchets, the original and the new one. I think the handle's an improvement. The metal part, a little bit janky on the new one, but it adds a little character, I think, having those little indentations there. Well, this project is wrapped up. I intentionally did not go over the details of how to produce the silicone mold using the Mold Max 60 because I've covered that in at least 2 other videos. I'll include links to those videos in the notes for this one if you'd like to go back and review. Thanks for watching. Hurry there. Good catch, Skip.
Oh, thanks.
You guys are doing a good job over there.
We're working hard.
Well, we'll see how it works.